Hey guys, Michael here. Today I've got something quite different, but it's related to Elder Scrolls, obviously. Today we're gonna have a discussion video, and I want to start this series basically talking about different events and what might happen in the future and such and such. And today's topic is going to be the Second Great War. Now, if you don't know what the Great War is, which I'll be surprised if you've played Skyrim, is the Great War was the war between the Second Aldmeri Dominion and the Third Empire, I believe. Yeah, Third. And it was over the fact that the Aldmeri Dominion is run by the Thalmor at the moment, and the Thalmor have always aimed to try and show elven supremacy over the men and the Dark Elves and Argonians. Basically, they want to control Cyrodiil and rule Tamriel, as the Imperials have done for such a long time. And the Great War started with them executing many Blades agents in the Valenwood and the Somerset Isles, and just lots of tensions. And yeah, when it ended, it was a catastrophic failure for the Empire, but they had one major success, was basically signing the White-Gold Concordat. Now, this is an agreement where Talos is outlawed. Thalmor have basically got the Imperials as their puppets, but it was the only way the Empire could have survived, otherwise the Aldmeri Dominion would have continued to annihilate them. And this is why there's a reason, there's a call for people to fight for the Empire during the Civil War in Skyrim at the moment, but I'm not going to get into that now. But basically, today's topic, we're going to talk about the Second Great War. Now, it's sort of inevitable that this is going to happen, as there's so much tension between the Aldmeri Dominion and the Empire that there just has to be a war. So we're going to go over scenarios, ways this could happen and start, and who could be the ultimate victory. So, as you can see, basically the events that happen in the Civil War in Skyrim are going to canon into what happens. So at the moment, during the game of Skyrim is divided, seen by the Stormcloaks, who want to succeed from the Empire and start basically being an independent nation, whereas the Empire wants to make Skyrim still part of the Imperial Legion, and they say this is to strengthen them so they can basically stop the Aldmeri Dominion from fighting back. Now, the Imperials control High Rock, which is one of their states, their provinces they own, and Cyrodiil, which is their homeland. And if the Stormcloaks win the Civil War, then the Empire is only left with 2 provinces, whilst the Thalmor, for the Aldmeri Dominion, still has 3. And even though there is a lot of tensions going on in these Aldmeri states, they're very loyal to them, and the Thalmor have kind of absolute power over the whole 3 regions, and this is seen as they use violence and threats to get the way of the people to support them. And I think that it's hard to describe, but in the Aldmeri provinces, there's obvious that there's, from the lore and reading and what people have said, that they have more control over the other people. Now, that's not to say that people in Elsewhere and Valenwood and Somerset Isles don't like the Thalmor, because trust me, there's lots of groups and factions that just hate the Aldmeri Dominion completely and want to see their rule basically finished. But there's much less rebellious spirits, and there's just more of a thing in Skyrim and High Rock. There's more of a chance of civil wars, as people have been angered by the outlaw of Talos, which is just dear to some Nords, that they just love Talos and they can't comprehend the fact of not worshipping him. And in High Rock, because if you think about it, if you didn't know, in High Rock it's basically run by houses, but they're families, and they kind of, almost similar to the Jarls, they combine to have a ruling over each other. But some of these houses just might get sick of Imperial rule, but even though Imperial financially provide these houses, they might just get sick of it one day and have a civil war. And of course the Orcs of Orsinium could always want their own state, and this might cause a problem for High Rock. Whereas in Elsewhere, there's a small resistance. I know that there is talk of that, but it's much less in the Imperial states. And same with Valenwood. There is, in the dense forest jungles, there are rebel factions, but if you didn't know, the Ordinary Dominion have used tactics in Vaderwood, such as wiping out entire villages and families in order to scare the people from out talking bad about the Thalmor and all that. So that is why there's many problems. There could be there's benefits for it, as people in Skyrim who support Stormcloaks think that that's the Empire's problem, it's not ours. We'll be able to fight the Thalmor if they come to our doors, but it's just a threat for Tamriel, and that's one of the arguments against supporting the Stormcloaks. But however, if the Empire win the Civil War in Skyrim, it makes it a bit different. Both the Ordinary Dominion and the Empire will have 3 provinces each, and this means that it means they're more powerful, and they have allies in Skyrim, High Rock and Cyrodiil, and they'll be able to call a force on the Ordinary Dominion if Second War starts. And that's one of the reasons why people would support the Empire, because there's just more. They believe if we fight for the Empire, we keep the Ordinary Dominion out of Skyrim, and then we'll grow to restart our campaign and finally kick the elves, kind of get rid of the Thalmor, just destroy them completely. And it could be similar to when Talos invaded all of Tamriel. So because Talos, when he rose to Emperor, he decided to invade all of Tamriel because there was so much tension going on. And this could be seen to happen again. Like, if the Empire gets its strength back from keeping Skyrim, then maybe they could take over Elsewhere, Phalanwood and the Somerset Isles and give them to supporters of the Empire, but it's still run by High Elves, if you get what I mean. So it's not like a dictatorship, it's just their allies. And that's one of the reasons people might fight for the Empire. Now, Hammerfell, Morrowind and Blackmarsh are all run independently by their respected races, the Redguards, the Dark Elves and the Argonians. And in Hammerfell, they succeeded from the Empire 20 years before the events of Skyrim in the 4th era in the 108th year, because they didn't want to sign the White Gold Concordat because it meant that fighting would carry on in southern Hammerfell, and the Redguards managed to push them out independently without the support of the Legion. And I don't think they want to join the Legion again, because it means that there'll probably be a war again in Hammerfell where the Thalmor were trying to invade southern Hammerfell again, which they did for a long period of time during the Great War. So this is why they wouldn't fight for the Empire if they had the chance. They would probably just fight the Thalmor, but they wouldn't align themselves. They would just try and kick them out. And back to the Stormcloaks, if they ran Skyrim, if you listen closely at the last speech that Ulfric makes when he takes over Solitude, he talks about how he could fight on his shores or abroad, which could imply that the Stormcloaks would help, well, not help, but they would fight the Ultima if they had the chance. So they would go to Somerset Isles and destroy the Thalmor. It's just a theory. Probably wouldn't happen, because Ulfric seems he just wants to kick everyone out of Skyrim and just keep the Nords to themselves, if you get what I mean. He doesn't really want to invade, but that's just a theory. And if we go talk about Morrowind and Blackmarsh, they have too many problems to really care about the events in the Great War. I do not see at all people invading Blackmarsh. It's such a different land, and the Argonians are such strong fighters. I just don't see the Thalmor, even if they try, they'll just get massacred. And same Morrowind, I don't see them taking over that either, because the houses, despite their differences, they would align to just get rid of the Thalmor. So that's why I think that those two states will just be like, won't get involved in the Civil War if they had the chance. So if the I keep on calling it Civil War. So if the Second Great War were to happen, then I do believe it would be between the Legion and the Ordinary Dominion, obviously, but it wouldn't involve. It probably wouldn't involve the Morrowind and Blackmarsh, because they just don't want to get involved with it. Seen by how they haven't picked a side, they haven't let the Empire govern them or whatever. They're just independent states. And for a start, Morrowind and Blackmarsh do not like the Empire at all. When Talos tried to invade Blackmarsh, he barely touched Blackmarsh. He got around the edge of it, but far away from the dense forests where his groups would have been massacred. And they withdrew after, I think it was the start of the 4th era, because there was no benefit from keeping it. And Morrowind doesn't like, Dark Elves don't really like the Imperials at all, because despite, if you see in Windhelm, they are supporters of the Imperials and Dark Elves, but that's because they're desperate. It's because, if you heard of House Slahu, which are one of the old great houses of Morrowind, they basically supported the Empire, and no one in Morrowind really likes House Slahu because they sort of betrayed them. I'm not going to go into that because it's a long story, but Morrowind doesn't trust the Empire and don't let them into their state, so it's going to be involved with the provinces in the western side of Tamriel, and the Second Great War will be bloody. It's almost inevitable because there's just so much tension, and whatever happens in Skyrim, it will canon on to the Second Great War, and there's a possibility that the Thalmor could win, and we could have a game where Thalmor have won or the Empire have won, but it could be during the Second Great War, which is an idea. And since the fact that it's not confirmed, obviously, we haven't heard anything about Elder Scrolls 6, but most people do think it's going to be Hammerfell next because it hasn't been played in Hammerfell yet, and it's just a massive province, and it'll be very interesting because there's such a wide variety of different storylines that could occur. So the Thalmor could try and retake Hammerfell without the Empire's help, or maybe the Empire have got Hammerfell back under their wing. We don't know, and that's why the Second Great War has so many different endings. So the Empire could possibly win, and we could see the end of the Thalmor, but I think that's unlikely. I think the Thalmor are going to be involved in most of the next games. I think that's just how it's going to be, because it's just such a big storyline. The Second Great War probably will be much more significant than the First Great War, because the Second Great War will probably determine Tamriel's fate. So, because Titus Me II, most people don't like him because of what he did about the White Gold Concordat, but if you think about it, what else could he have done? His empire would have been annihilated if they hadn't signed the treaty, because for a time the Thalmor actually had the Imperial City. They had a lot of cities and sacked a lot of them as well in Cyrodiil. So by signing that Concordat, he got his troops back into shape, and he's trying to grow his armies again. Well, obviously if you didn't kill him during the Dark Brotherhood questline, but he's getting his armies back together. He's trying to regain his strength, and that's why keeping Skyrim is so important to him. So, but it still means even if he loses Skyrim, it doesn't mean he will lose the whole thing. It does make his situation weaker, because he needs those people. The Imperials require a lot of Nords to join the Empire because they see the growing threat of the Aldmeri Dominion. And if you talk to most Nords, they just despise the Thalmor, but obviously secretly. Otherwise, the Thalmor use violent methods such as kidnapping and torture to get people to side with them. So that's my opinion on the Great War. I always pick the Empire when I fight like Civil Wars, if it's on my opinion, not on a character, because I do a lot of character builds. If you watch my Skyrim character builds, then you know it's not about my opinion, it's about the character's role playing, and it's about their opinion. But I always fight for the Empire if I pick, because it's sort of, I understand the growing threat of the Aldmeri Dominion, and I know that by taking Skyrim, the Empire is much stronger and can combat against this threat. And as to when the Great War might happen, we don't know. Simple as that. It's just, it can happen shortly, depending on what happens in Skyrim and just generally during tensions, but it could happen in a long time. The Thalmor and the Empire could keep this like fake friendship up, and they could ultimately mean that they will be stronger in a way. Not stronger. It could mean that they have this alliance, which is not the Empire and the Thalmor know it's just fake. It's just to keep war from happening. Because I don't think the Thalmor and the Imperials don't want the war to happen straight away, because if you looked at the casualties, it obviously doesn't say the amount, but it's spoken how many people died. Most people who fought ended up getting killed just due to the bloodshed spill and different battles. So I don't know when it's going to happen, because there's just so many different factors which could come into it. But whenever it does happen, it's going to be bloody, and it's going to decide the fate of Tamriel. So I hope you enjoyed that little discussion about the Second Great War. I just want to try new things. You know, I've always wanted to like share my opinions on it. It's just something I like to talk about. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this discussion. If you do, please like and subscribe, because it tells me whether I should carry on the series or not. And it would be really good if you could subscribe. I know I'm just repeating myself, but it makes me motivated to carry on doing these builds. And yeah, I'll see you next time. Peace.